It's the spring equinox. With spring comes new beginnings. After a disastrous year of pandemic, we know there are many places of culture that can't wait to begin things again. Highbury Theatre is one such place. John Todd will tell us how the theatre came into being.
In a quiet side street off the Boldmere Road, you might be surprised to find, of all things, a working theatre, the Highbury Theatre Centre. And you might wonder what on earth a theatre is doing in such an out-of-the-way place. Well, the story goes back a long way, almost 100 years in fact, to 1924, when a group of mainly young people in Erdington got together to form a play reading society. The following year they began putting on plays, eventually calling themselves the Highbury Players. By the 1930s, the Players had become a well-established company, often getting favourable reviews in the Birmingham press. But one thing was lacking. More than anything, the Players longed to have a theatre of their own. And so, perhaps more in hope than expectation, they set up a building fund and began a search for premises. The story goes that much of this search was conducted from a horse and trap. And so it was that in 1937 the Players came across a plot of land for sale in this quiet street, Sheffield Road. On it stood a wooden building that had once been a mission hut. The vendors wanted far more for the plot than there was in the building fund, but since it seemed unlikely that anything cheaper could be found, the Players clubbed together to make up the difference, and the plot was bought. Plans were now drawn up for a theatre to be built on the site, incorporating the existing wooden building. There was, of course, no question of the work being done professionally. Where would the money come from? No, everything would have to be done by the Players themselves. Fortunately, a retired builder was at hand to give advice. So work began, and was well underway when war broke out. Now, you might have expected that the Players would down tools until the war was over. Not a bit of it. Work continued, much of it now being undertaken by female members of the company. At last, in 1942, the work was finished, and where just 5 years before there had stood an ugly wooden hut, there was now a complete little theatre, fully equipped and ready to welcome its first audience. And in May of that year, the Highbury Little Theatre opened its doors to the public for the first time with a production of Shaw's Arms and the Man. Among that first night audience were many distinguished people, including Sir Barry Jackson of the Birmingham Repertory Theatre, who commented, "It's almost incredible that such a wonder as a new theatre and such a perfect little theatre should come into existence amid so many difficulties." Arms and the Man had a short run, after which the company began preparing for their first full season of plays, and they continued to present a full season every year, right up to the beginning of last year when, as we know, things had to stop. But you can be sure that the Players will be ready with a new programme of lively productions as soon as the current lockdown ends. And now, as a reminder of that opening production in 1942, here is an extract from Arms and the Man, presented by current members of the company.
There has been a great battle at Slivnitsa, and a soldier from the Servian side is fleeing from the victorious army. He has climbed up a water pipe into the bedroom of a young woman in a small town in Bulgaria. But rather than hand him over to the local soldiers, she hides him. Here are Louise Griffiths as Raina and Richard Constable as Blunchley.
Now listen, you must trust to our hospitality. You do not yet know in whose house you are. I am a Petkoff.
What's that?
I mean that I belong to the family of Petkoffs, the richest and best known in our country.
Oh yes, of course, I beg your pardon. The Petkoffs, to be sure. How stupid of me.
You know you've never heard of them until this minute. How can you stoop to pretend?
Oh, forgive me, I'm too tired to think, and the change of subject was too much for me. Oh, don't scold me.
I forgot. It might make you cry. I must tell you that my father holds the highest command of any Bulgarian in our army. He is a major.
A major? Bless me, think of that.
You showed great ignorance in thinking that it was necessary to climb up the balcony, because ours is the only private house that has 2 rows of windows. There is a flight of stairs inside to get up and down by.
Stairs? How grand! You live in great luxury indeed, dear young lady.
Do you know what a library is?
A library? A room full of books?
Yes, we have one. The only one in Bulgaria.
Actually, a real library? I should like to see that.
I tell you these things to show you that you are not in the house of ignorant country folk who would kill you the moment they saw your Servian uniform, but among civilised people. We go to Bucharest every year for the opera season, and I have spent a whole month in Vienna.
I saw that, dear young lady. I saw at once that you knew the world.
Have you ever seen the opera of Ernani?
Is that the one with the devil in it in red velvet and a soldier's chorus?
No.
Then I don't know it.
Oh, I thought you might have remembered the great scene where Ernani, flying from his foes just as you are tonight, takes refuge in the castle of his bitterest enemy, an old Castilian noble. The noble refuses to give him up. His guest is sacred to him.
Have your people got that notion?
My mother and I can understand that notion, as you call it, and if, instead of threatening me with your pistol as you did, you had simply thrown yourself as a fugitive on our hospitality, you would have been as safe as in your father's house.
Quite sure?
Oh, it is useless to try and make you understand.
Don't be angry. You see how awkward it would be for me if there was any mistake. My father is a very hospitable man. He keeps 6 hotels. But I couldn't trust him as far as that. What about your father?
He is away at Slivnitsa, fighting for his country. I answer for your safety. There is my hand in pledge of it. Will that reassure you?
Better not touch my hand, dear young lady. I must have a wash first.
That is very nice of you. I see that you are a gentleman.
Eh?
Oh, you must not think I am surprised. Bulgarians of really good standing, people in our position, wash their hands nearly every day. But I appreciate your delicacy. You may take my hand.
Thank you for listening to this podcast, which, thanks to the very generous funding from Royal Sutton Coldfield Town Council, we hope is part of a longer series of Sutton celebrations. Thank you to all of the speakers, actors and musicians who've been involved with these podcasts. I've been Vimal Korpel. The theme music was written by Jobe Baker-Sullivan. The series editor was Cormac Wade, and this has been an Active Arts production. Until next time, happy equinox.